Hello and welcome to Must Read Fiction, a place for people who know that life is better with a novel in hand. I'm Erin Popelka, and I'm so delighted to be here today with author Christie Grotheim. Welcome.
Thank you, Erin. Thanks for having me. I'm just so glad to be here on your platform and looking forward to it.
Truly my pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. A little bit about Christie Grotheim. She is a writer whose personal essays and creative nonfiction have been featured on Salon.com, The New York Observer, and SmithMag.org, among others. She enjoys sharing her work in reading series throughout Manhattan. Her debut novel is The Year Marjorie Moore Learned to Live, which I know you have a copy of right next to you. Please flash that beautiful book. Congratulations on the publication of your debut novel. Please tell me about it. Tell me about that beautiful book you have in your hands.
Yeah, and The Year Marjorie Moore Learned to Live is about Margie Moore, my very flawed protagonist. And she's the kind of woman who's always searching elsewhere. Sort of a perpetual seeker who is not really satisfied with her own life or really very present in it for that matter. She feels trapped by her family, by her husband and her two kids, and the town that she lives in, which is a suburb outside of Dallas, Texas. And so she escapes through pill popping, through obsessive shopping, and she distracts herself with social media and fantasizing about a possible affair with a friend of hers from high school who she reconnects with on Facebook. And also with her growing debt, she feels that she's forced, in her opinion, she's forced to start selling prescription meds, which she secures at the hospital where she works as registering patients at the ER. And so her world just sort of starts to spiral. And it's kind of a satirical story in that it's a bit exaggerated to make a point, and hopefully it's a social commentary on things like consumerism, escapism, self-awareness, and authenticity. And but hopefully it's kind of makes people reflect on themselves a little bit and what they really value in life and how they spend their valuable time. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh, such interesting questions. And certainly like the things that you've listed in terms of social media and obsessive shopping and, kind of taking pills for distraction, like all of those are things that are super common. I feel like I read somewhere that like the internet is the best over-the-counter short-term painkiller that's available, that we spend all of those times. And so what an interesting and kind of rich set of circumstances to explore in the novel.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to get carried down that road.
Yeah, fantastic. So where did you get the idea for the book and how did the characters develop?
Well, the novel started actually as a short story that I wrote for a workshop, a fiction workshop at the 92nd Street Y. So the plot changed dramatically, as you can imagine, but the character was always pretty clear in my mind. And it was just really, really well received by the class. And like the enthusiasm and energy that people brought to the table, I thought I was really onto something, with this character. And so she evolved a lot as far as making her three-dimensional and, giving a backstory and things like that. But that is, how it started. And in fact, there's one scene that I haven't really talked about that much on interviews. That's in the beginning of the book. So I know that you probably read it about how she has the collages pasted up around her house of the objects that she wants and desires on her actual real, kitchen walls. And that scene was in both the short story and the book. And it kind of helped me develop her characters. It's like, who would live in a house like this? Who would live that way? What kind of person? And I just found it to be so ironic and almost cinematic that that really was one of the first inklings of the novel. And then I kind of really wanted to explore whether we are capable of sort of changing our inherent natures, and outlooks and mindsets. So.
Oh, yeah. Super, super interesting and like so many good questions. And I think it sounds like you, as the character developed, you did such a really good job of putting your character in some pretty uncomfortable situations, and she makes some pretty challenging decisions. And so I wanted to just learn a little bit more from you. Like, what did it feel like to, you know, have your characters put in these not so awesome situations and kind of see where they took it?
Yeah, and like you said, it is such a character-driven novel that I just thought of what kind of situations a person like this would get into, and then how this person would respond. And it was kind of funny because in one of my Q&As, somebody asked me like if I felt I was ever losing control of the story with this person taking the driver, because it did feel that she took on a life of her own in my mind. It really did. But I said, you know, while she was driving and pressing the gas, like I was still holding the steering wheel, you know, the whole time. So it was really fun to just develop the plot that way and think about where I wanted to take it on that. Yeah. So I think that's hopefully answers the question a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that metaphor, that idea of, you know, Margie's pushing the gas and you're holding the steering wheel, and, you know, and together you're getting where you needed to go. So
Yeah.
what did you learn from that process? What did you learn about like holding onto that steering wheel with both hands?
Well, one thing I learned that I think was pretty interesting was when I started, you know, working on this character, I thought that she was really sort of the antithesis that everything that I believe in and stand for as far as her, well, I guess you'd say ethics or her mindset. But the more I kept working on it, I realized I related to her more than I cared to admit. And so as we went along, as I went along, I found myself pouring some of myself into the book, like the way she rationalizes, and there's a lot of internal dialogue, or you know, we're in her mind a lot, and I'm certainly capable of rationalizing and sort of justifying what I want to do sometimes. So, you know, I found that there was a lot of me in there. And then one thing that's kind of interesting, I mean, I had some of the same problems as her, I guess you'd say. Like, I used to escape with alcohol, and I actually, not to get too deep or anything, but I got sober toward the end of writing the book. And the funny thing about it was I kind of saw it like, oh, well, what a coincidence. I mean, we're in totally different circumstances, absolutely, but going down a similar path. But obviously it wasn't just a coincidence. There's a lot, you know, going on in my subconscious while writing the book. So, I mean, that was a biggie. And then there's just a lot of little things that I see myself in her all the time, where it's like, oh, I get that high from ordering on Amazon Prime, no matter what, you know, what little thing it is. And I don't see myself as materialistic, but, you know, there's part of me in there. And then with social media, you know, it's so capable of really pulling us out of our lives. And I see that happening to myself. So I think one thing I learned was kind of that being present in the moment is really not just something you learn to do once. You have to concentrate on it, you know, every day. It's like a continual process of thinking about that kind of thing. What brings you authentic joy, and you know, it's not just something you learn one time and then you're done. So
right, I think that's certainly why they call it a practice, right? Like a practice of mindfulness, because it's not like you're like, yep, I got it, I'm here, you know. It's this thing that you have to kind of continue to return to. And did you find that in the writing, that like as you progressed with the writing of the book? Because oftentimes I find that writing for me like really does center me. It centers me outside myself, but it's like it's really hard to not be fully present, like when I'm in the flow of some of my own writing. Like, is that something that you found in terms of the writing of the book too?
Yeah, I mean, I just loved writing it. It was my first novel, obviously the debut, but I just got so sucked into that world, and you're really in it. So there's no room for any worries or fears, you know, in your mind when you're writing. And that's what I love about it. You just get in that vortex, and I love the experience of it, you know. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you for holding on to that steering wheel while she pushed on the gas. Thank you for taking that journey. So the Year Marjorie Moore Learned to Live came out in April of 2019. So I would just love to hear from you, like, how has it been to have a book in the world and to talk to readers about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been just a wild and wonderful and intense year, as other authors know, but just every emotion under the sun, you know. Like, I was a little surprised you get this book deal and you're so excited about, your dream coming true. I was a little excited. There was that feeling of vulnerability at first, that I really didn't think I would have so strongly, because I had published a bunch of personal essays, which would in some ways feel more personal, putting yourself out there. And then my background, as I mentioned earlier, was graphic design. So I've been critiqued ever since I was 18 years old. So, but it's just something different when it's your baby and you've worked 5 years on it, on and off, and for the whole process. So, I had that feeling, but then you just grow into it and you learn that, and it's an art and it's going to find its audience and everything like that. So I sort of, obviously got past that and grew from it. And I mean, it's just been great hearing from readers. I've been really thrilled with really strong Goodreads reviews. And then, the personal messages you get from people that were affected by the book and that it resonated with, as everyone says, it's just been wonderful. And I mean, I could just go on and on about the year. It's also kind of harder work than I assumed. So much falls into the author's hand with social media and the promotion and marketing and everything like that. So it's just, nonstop that way. But I also did like it because it really pushed me out of my comfort zone in some ways. You're having new experiences, like public speaking. I still don't really love it, but I know I'm very capable of it. You know what I mean? And I just love every single event that I've had. I have loved it, in conversation with different people. And then, of course, one of the best things is just the authors I've met, and the fact that I really feel part of a community. I mean, it's just one of the strongest bonds I think I've ever had, because other authors have been so generous, and there's this group that I'm involved in that started on social media on Facebook called Debut Authors 19. Maybe some of your other authors have talked about it that have been on this show, but it's just been this great community in person, the people that are in New York, or we meet up with people that even live other places, and we support each other and just sometimes vent and just share in our excitement and everything. So that's been the best part of it for me, really. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I am glad that you have found some community around your debut novel. I'm glad that we're part of it. Go ahead and let's see that book one more time before we close out the interview. So
Absolutely.
Must readers, please do check out the Year Marjorie Moore Learned to Live by Christie Grotheim. And Christie, thank you. Thank you so very much for this conversation today.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it. It's been great talking with you about the book and some other things and writing. So I appreciate it.
Okay. Truly my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Bye-bye.
Bye.